We wondered, didn't we? The rumours, they were swirling and swirling. You heard them, I heard them. The speculation was rife for years. Is Purslow a JLA fan? Well, we now have conclusive proof that, of course, he is. Mr. Purslow, if you are watching right now, thanks. And thanks for listening. Roll the clip.
I think Unai Emery would be a really, really good shout. You know he's got a point to prove.
That's right. Unai Emery is the new manager of Everton. I thought it'd be a good idea. They've gone with it. Let's see if it actually is one by diving into how Unai Emery will set up at Aston Villa. So if you enjoy this video and enjoy this kind of video, you can let me know by hitting the like button. And of course, if you enjoy the channel generally, the World Cup is coming. I've got some news on that, hopefully coming soon as well. So it's going to be a very exciting time. So definitely another reason to subscribe to the JLA channel. All right, guys, first things first, I think this is a brilliant appointment for Aston Villa. And again, the coaching quality in this division is really so high. It is the best of the best now. And I think Aston Villa fans can be kind of cautious in the idea that it's going to be free-flowing football, but you've got someone who is a really, really good fit right now. And again, someone that you know is going to be diligent, detailed, and switched on when it comes to his tactical setup. He is a 4-time Europa League winner, and he has of course, departed Villarreal for this move to Aston Villa. And as I said, I think it's a really exciting appointment by Villa, and in this video, we're going to show you why exactly that is. So, Emery at Villarreal, this is what we need to focus on first and foremost, because you can go further back to those Arsenal days, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But what's more important, because the move from, I mean, it's literally got Villa in his name, isn't it? In the team before, Villarreal to Villa, very similar in terms of getting success for a team that is just underneath the elite clubs in the division. So, Emery at Villarreal. For the most part, Unai Emery deployed a 4-4-2 at Villarreal and had a lot of success with it. Emery led Villarreal to 2 consecutive 7th-placed finishes, which was solid, right? Using this exact system, this 4-4-2 that I think you might see at Aston Villa. We'll show you that in just a second. He also, of course, guided them to Europa League success against Manchester United in that penalty shootout, you remember. And it was the club's first ever trophy. So despite this 4-4-2 being an uninspiring formation when you initially think of it, Emery's system has a lot of interesting tactical intricacies that make it more than just your standard 4-4-2. He also showed at Villarreal that he's capable of using other setups with a 4-2-3-1, which I know Aston Villa fans have been screaming for, and we saw it in that last game, that 4-0 victory. He deployed that this season to equal effect, with the club aptly sitting 7th place in the league at this present moment in time. The ideologies behind the 4-4-2, let's have a look at that then. So let's have a look at it. This is a simplified version of Unai Emery's tactics looking at Villarreal. So the most interesting thing about the tactic is that the 4-4-2 is actually asymmetric. Where my FM crew at? During his time at Villarreal, Emery preferred to have the right winger play as an out-and-out winger, with Arsenal target Yeremy Pino doing the role this season. But before him, they deployed Samuel Chukwueze. Where my FM crew at? A lot of you subscribers won't know what I'm saying there, but the few of you that do, thank you. God, Chukwueze. Brilliant and infuriating in equal measure. If you know, you know, okay? The right winger in this system is often given a license to carry the ball and be direct when in possession. We can see this clearly in the stats with Samuel Chukwueze. He was averaging 8.18 dribbles attempted per 90 this season. That's almost 5 more than the next player. Next up is the left midfielder position. It's another aspect of Unai Emery's setup, and it was this position that was sort of acting as a sort of half 10, half left midfielder in this asymmetric system. Emery often gives the left midfielder a more defensive role to minimise how exposed the team is when they lose the ball. So Gio Lo Celso, obviously ex-Spurs, he did this role to great effect since his move from Spurs. We've also got another ex-Premier League name, ex-Liverpool fullback Alberto Moreno, who has also been used in this role, and they play them both in very different ways. So when Lo Celso plays it, he looks to sort of come inside and create things from central positions, whereas when Moreno plays it, he tends to attack the sort of wider spaces. So these are all these tactical nuances that Emery deploys dependent on the opposition. The other key thing to talk about when it comes to the setup, and another good fit when it comes to Aston Villa, is strike partnership. Emery is one of the few coaches in Europe at the minute who prefers to play with two strikers. Arnaut Danjuma, who's ex-Championship with Bournemouth, has been a revelation for Villarreal during his time at the club. He scored 10 goals from 17 starts in La Liga last season, mostly playing from the striker position, with the more left side being the more defensive side for Villarreal. It gave him the opportunity to move out wide when he felt like it, and to often move from out to in to receive the ball. This makes him really, really tricky to pick up. And if you have a look at his heat map here, you can see that it demonstrates exactly how he played last season. A bit of a strange heat map, to be honest, for him to be so central as well as staying out wide left as well. But it was the system. He was still able to move into sort of clever positions centrally and scored goals because of that specifically. The other strike partner, of course, Moreno, one of the most well-known players for Villarreal, who's the other half of that strike partnership. And Moreno was also given a role in which he was allowed to drift to the wing to receive the ball. The Villarreal strikers would often split to the wings when in possession to allow Villarreal to find them easily in transitions and move the ball vertically up the pitch. Villarreal under Emery were a team that sort of typically attacked in waves rather than long periods of possession. You will have seen that probably more notably in the Champions League with those victories against Juventus, it was, right? And obviously the difficulty that they provided to Liverpool last season. So expect this Villa team to be something similar. This was actually one of the reasons why Emery failed at Arsenal. Rather than being allowed to play his preferred style, there was this expectancy to play a more attractive brand of football, which meant that it never really materialised at Arsenal for him. And as time went on, he went from a back four to a back three, sort of trying to push fullbacks on, then trying to be that little bit more conservative. However, I think this style of play will be fully backed by the Aston Villa hierarchy and the fans. So what does this mean for Aston Villa, and how will Emery set up at Aston Villa? So this is how they could line up. It's pretty exciting, I think, when you look at the type of positions and roles Unai Emery liked at Villarreal, and then comparing that to the personnel that Aston Villa have at their disposal at this moment in time. In my opinion, they are incredibly well suited to playing a similar style to what Unai Emery had so much success with at Villarreal. Firstly, you've got the double pivot. Emery utilised a playmaker and destroyer partnership at Villarreal, and despite McGinn not being the perfect fit for this role, Kamara, once he's fit again, is going to be absolutely brilliant in this role, breaking up possession and just giving that simple pass. Douglas Luiz should also revel in this position, as he's going to have a lot of forward runners in front of him to find with his passing range. That left midfielder position, it's up for debate, I've got to be honest. Let me know in the comments down below, who would you want out there if they play this similar style? If Villa want to attack a game, it's possible that they might deploy Buendia there, because he can come centrally at times, but isn't the best when playing out wide, and is much more suited to that central 10 position. Another candidate could be Jacob Ramsey, as he could do well in sort of replicating that Lo Celso role that he had. I guess there's question marks for Coutinho. What does the future say about Coutinho when it comes to Unai Emery, especially if he looks to play this system? Leon Bailey is very, very exciting. He's such an exciting fit for this system specifically, because the freedom that he's going to have to dribble and to carry the ball down the right flank, it's no doubt going to get the best out of him. And we saw at the weekend how effective he was at targeting space. And this is something that could remain a theme for the rest of the season, in particular with Leon Bailey. We say a few times on this channel, he could explode, certainly in terms of how much he impresses the teams and how much impact he has in games. He's almost purpose-built for this role. Then let's talk about the striker partnerships, because it's yet another match made in heaven for Emery, in my opinion. That was a problem for Gerrard and for Dean Smith, actually, as well, in terms of finding a way to have Watkins and Danny Ings in the same team. And with Watkins, you've got a player that is very similar to Danjuma in how he likes to play. Watkins he'll be deadly drifting out wide, but then coming into central areas in the final phases of the play. That's kind of the perfect scenario for him. We saw it at Brentford. He's done it at times with Aston Villa, but often he's played as that central striker himself. And he's good there, but his finishing ability it needs help. And so Danny Ings, that's why he's probably trying to be fitted into the teams. And Danny Ings will also benefit from this system, as he's likely to going to be given a lot of service from that right flank, with Bailey having a direct role. And we saw how deadly that he can be and how direct he was with his wing play in that game against Brentford. So there's a lot to get excited about from this appointment. Emery will be allowed to play the brand of football that he wants, which is a huge positive, I think, for him, and how successful he can be. Just kind of allowing him to do what he wants to do will be crucial. He's very, very different to that sort of loud, outspoken manager. But what you do know that he's going to do is he's going to do the work for this Aston Villa side. They're going to be hard to break down. Again, will that be boring at times? Possibly. Because I think that when someone sort of comes into a job, it's worth thinking about what's going to get them booted out at the end of it. And that will be the prediction. The prediction that it's not exciting enough for Aston Villa. And there's also a talking point, I think, when it comes to the fullbacks, where at Arsenal, he tried to push them on, certainly at the start of his reign. And at Aston Villa, you've got Cash and you've got Luca Dean. It'll be interesting to see how they sort of dovetail, and because I think it's going to be one will go and one will stay back at any moment in time. So can they both get forward? Can you get the best out of both of those? Or will one of them sacrifice for a more defensive fit? I think it's going to be really, really interesting, but I do think this is the way that he will go. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that Villarreal aren't that financially blessed, and that Emery did a really, really good job there, despite not having unlimited funds. At Aston Villa, he's very likely that he's going to be backed financially, and given the squad of players that he already has and the players that he could add to it, I think it's a really, really good appointment by the Villa board. But then I would say that because I did say that. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button for me, subscribe to the channel if you're not a bad egg, and I'll see you in the next one.